Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now, to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business experts and real estate leaders. Past guests include Devin Howland talking about economic development in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Yoni Schmidt of the Keyrenter team talking about property owners frequently asked questions, and Kevin Evans of Liberty Air Services talking about HVAC systems, how they work, and why they're so darn complicated. Today's episode is brought to you by Chris Lyle State Farm. Chris Lyle State Farm helps you protect your most precious assets and investments. Whether it's your home and auto, investment rental properties, or other valuables, call Chris Lyle's State Farm for a quick and painless phone call to potentially save you double digits on all of your insurance needs. Visit diallyle.com or call his office at 918-878-7771. Today's episode is also brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. Listen, Will, you know how hard it is to line up contractors to get a make-ready done in a reasonable amount of time if you don't have the scale that Spark Construction has. Contractors are often busy, the work seems to drag on forever, and all that leads to lost rental income if you're in our business. At Keyrenter, we line up our dedicated vendors so that turns happen super quickly and we get more money back into the pockets of our owners. That's why no matter what rentals you have, single-family homes, condos, townhomes, apartments, we have the management solutions that you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Today's guest is Will Karstetter. He's the half owner of Spark Equity, a multidivisional private investment firm, primarily focusing on acquiring value-add real estate assets. Spark now has over $40 million in assets under management. That's about 500 units, including some industrial apartments and mobile home parks. Spark Construction and Spark Homes are serving Tulsa and the metro area, and Spark Lending serves Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Spark Equity Group was formed to not only be a rapidly growing investment firm, but to create a platform of highly motivated individuals to feel empowered and reach their goals. Spark has found that by creating an inspiring and motivating environment, the growth naturally follows. Spark is more than just a company to us. It's a community that we're all a part of. Will Karstetter, thanks for being on the show, man. Appreciate you being here with us.
Of course, yeah.
I want to ask you, you've proven, you and I have known each other for a while. I don't even remember how we met years ago through Brian Mars or something, looking at deals together, and then just through the by and by of Tulsa real estate. But you've proven yourself to be a real serious player in the Tulsa real estate world. You've grown Spark Equity super quickly, the lending side, the construction side, but you didn't start this way. I mean, your history is not in your background as a family. I don't think is in real estate, is it?
No. My dad, he's been minority owner of a HVAC company here in town, but they don't own a single rental property. He's never invested in real estate. He has they have a primary residence. But that's really it. I guess I was lucky to be exposed to real estate through actually a friend's dad from high school. My dad is very entrepreneurial. I think you kind of have to be a part owner. But he didn't necessarily just jump ship and go start something.
Yeah.
He worked his way up, and so I would almost classify him more as an entrepreneur. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just the reality of the situation.
Every great business needs those.
Yeah, exactly. But when my best friend's dad's from high school, I would consider an entrepreneur. He took the jump. He went and started his own company. And with some of his income, he would buy some rental properties. So he had like 11 or 12.
Cool.
And I remember thinking that was just insane. But, one night, I think in high school, he's, adding up how much money he makes per minute because of these rental properties. And, there's only 11, so it's not a ton, but it's still eye-opening to see that, hey, I'm sleeping and, technically making money right now. So that was the first exposure. Now I've always been entrepreneurial, but more geared towards tech. My first, venture was when I was a sophomore in high school. I started a penny auction.
Wow.
And that actually blew up. It got like 3,000 members on it in the first 2 weeks. I was sitting at home, in my underwear, eating cereal, making more money than my dad, and
Wow.
thinking that I just, was the smartest person in the world. Which
What was that? Literally, you were auctioning things off for theoretically pennies. I mean, whether 1,000 pennies or 20 pennies.
Yeah, so it's 2000. It's been probably like around 2010 is when penny auctions first started to come out. There's like Z bids and Y bids, and essentially the premise is they run those commercials. It's like, hey, you just bought this TV for 60 cents. And that is true, but each of those bids, so there were 60 bids, cost a larger dollar amount. And so theoretically, you are selling something that cheap, but at the same time, if you add up all the bids, it's not that cheap. So it was just kind of like an alternative to eBay that was kind of a hot fad for a while.
Yeah.
And I knew how to program a little bit, and my cousin and I kind of pieced some scripts together and went for it. And that went really, really well for 3 months. And then we got squashed like little bugs by the bigger guys. But
they just
it
drove
got
you
me
out
hooked on entrepreneurship.
Marketing. How did you get squashed?
So what initially was happening is, it's kind of a new concept. So people seeing the commercials from the big guys, and then they're going to their websites, and you get a couple free bids. And I think the first bid pack costs probably like $10. And so you buy that, and you use your bids, and you wouldn't really understand it. And so you'd be like, I think this is a scam. Like, I just lost all my money. Because the same thing kind of happened to me. I'm like, what is this new thing? And I'm going to go try to, play around with it. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And the reality is they just had a really kind of clunky interface, which everyone did at this time, but not great instructions. So my cousin and I, our entire idea was, we're going to build a platform, like a blog, connected to a penny auction. And all we're going to talk about is, our penny auctions a scam, how to use them properly so you don't waste your money. Because if you know how to use them, then there's no way that you're ever going to pay more for that TV than what you would have paid by just going to the store. So your worst case is just paying what you already were going to pay.
Right.
But there's a substantial chance that you'll actually get it for cheaper. So it's like, if you're already going to buy it, you're not just gambling to gamble, but if you're already going to buy it, penny auctions are an incredible way to buy things.
And it still exists?
Yeah, they still exist. They're not nearly as popular. But yeah, no, so we pasted some scripts together. It went really well for 3 months. People were coming to our blog because we were like, if you Googled, our penny auctions a scam or how to use them, our blog is at the very top of the page. People were clicking that and it's saying, okay, here's an actual video. Here's full instructions of how to use them smartly.
Cool.
And then we're funneling them over to our actual auction.
Yeah.
Now, our auction, we're selling 3-4 items a day. Like, it wasn't a ton, but, we got 3,000 members all bidding on it. We were like a TV, we were just going to Walmart and buying it to sell. And, like, I remember we sold like one like $300 TV for like $3,000. Like,
wow.
It just, you get a bunch of bids on it, and yeah, it sells for like $6, but each bid is $10.
Yeah, but that wasn't your first entrepreneurial venture. I mean, you've been entrepreneuring since you were a kid. Tell me about some of your other like harebrained schemes, and you're just trying to make a buck, going around the neighborhood asking for money or whatever to start little ventures.
So that was the first one that I actually did. But before that, I wanted to part out a Range Rover with my cousin.
What does that mean? Like fractional ownership, fractional use rights or something?
No, I was going to buy a wrecked Range Rover and just part it out and sell parts. And so that was like the first thing we tried. And oh my gosh, the parents were furious when I showed up with that thing.
How much did you pay for it?
I think $3,000.
Did you make any money doing it?
No, we just like took it back and like gave it back, essentially.
So you lost $3,000.
We lost some money. Okay. We didn't lose all of it, but we lost quite a bit. Okay. But it was better than
what your parents were.
They were not going to let me keep it in the driveway.
Junkyard.
Because that was my plan. I'm just going to part it out in the driveway. They're like, we have an HOA. Are you kidding? Like, you can't do this.
That reminds me of duck hunting as a kid, and like, cleaning ducks and then just putting them in the trash can behind my house. My dad being like, what is going on? You cannot leave like decomposing animals in our trash can. Sorry.
I didn't think about it at all. I'm like, this will work fine. I'll put a tarp down. It'll be great.
Oh my God. I mean, but that is the drive. That's the that's what kicks you off on an entrepreneurial drive. Like I mean, harebrained, crazy ideas that your parents will squash and ultimately leads you to do something else.
Yeah. So that was working on the first, and then I started like a drop shipping company for bodybuilders. I tracked musicians across the country for 6 months trying to figure out like what builds an audience.
Wow.
I had heavy duty papershredders.com, which actually did decent for a while, just selling like drop shipping bulk paper shredders, like really large, like kind of specialty products. And all I was really doing is just connecting them to the manufacturer. Like I really wasn't doing anything with that business. Um, what else? Uh, I like bought and sold couches throughout college. I started a clothing brand at one point. And this is all from 16 to 22, my senior year of college. My last thing, I guess, before real estate was I love fast cars. Like this about me. I love fast cars, and I wanted to get close to them or get in the circle somehow. So I started like a car filming company and got plugged into the Tulsa Exotic Supercar Club because I was making some cool free videos for them. And I started just getting like invited on the drives, and that kind of becomes like a business. And then so I'm like, okay, well maybe what I want to do after college is I want to go out and work for Auto Trader out in LA. And so I call them, I'm like, hey, I want an interview, and they're like, are you a journalism major? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, you're not even qualified for an interview. And so I'm like, all right, I'll call you back. So call them back a week later, and I'm like, what if I start like a YouTube channel? I got like 10,000 subscribers in 6 months. Could I have an interview then? She didn't say yes, but she also didn't say no. So it was like, all right, good enough for me. I'm just going to go for it. And I got like 2,000, 2,300 subscribers. But I realized it wasn't going to pay the bills. So I'm sitting in my capstone class and I'm shutting down this car video company. My friend who loved cars too was begging me not to do it. I'm like, this thing is not going to pay the bills. I'm going to go work at, my dad's HVAC company. That seems like the logical thing to do here. There's no guarantee there. I would certainly have to buy in, but there is some path to owning something.
Mm-hmm.
It is a golden spoon opportunity. There's no other way to say it. Like,
what business is that, by the way?
Yeah, it's called Automated Building Systems.
Automated buildings. So they do like they do bigger stuff. They do chillers and for big buildings.
Yep. Yeah, cool. The controls for chillers, HVAC units, rooftop units, all that stuff.
But they don't do like service, like a home service for single family, for example.
No. Got it. Okay. No single family.
Got it. Cool.
So I decided to do that, and I'm sitting in my capstone class like the day before graduation. My friend's like, hey, you got to look at real estate. It's what I'm going to do. You don't need any money. You can go flip houses, all this stuff. And I really wasn't interested really at all. I'm still not really interested in like the physical structure of real estate. I could care less. In fact, there was a stretch last year where I didn't look at like 40 homes in a row that we bought. Never went there, never looked at them. Like, I'm the Excel guy. That's really all I care about.
You just passed it over to Spark Construction and let them do their thing and renovate them, and then the management side jumped in and managed them.
Yeah, like last year I was running kind of point with Spark Homes, and we bought just over 100 homes last year alone. But I was doing kind of everything A to Z. Like we built out what is Spark Construction, even though we weren't doing other people's projects until this year, but we've had our construction team in place that does all of our projects for the last 3 years.
Wow.
And so what allowed us to do so many houses last year is, last year, I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the bank financing, I'm going and doing the acquisitions as well. And then I contract something, and I can basically give this house to Devin, who's our lead for Spark Construction, and he'll just, get it done.
Yeah.
Like I could be like, here's our general design. Here's a house that's similar. Here's the comp I used. Make it like this house. And then it's just done. And so then we brought on Aaron as our acquisition agent. And that's when we went on kind of that stretch of, I didn't really go look at him. I was trying to empower Aaron to do it. He did a great job. And I'm just doing numbers review, and I'm comping the home. and making the final decision on how we're going to get financed, how we're going to buy it, what our strategy is.
Beautiful. There's so much stuff there to unpack. I want to kind of touch on a bunch of that stuff. Let's talk about, you've got 2 consecutive years of 100+ door acquisitions. Where are you now? Where's Spark Homes at now in terms of doors owned, under management, that sort of thing?
Sure. Weirdly, our 2018, our first year when I was still, full time at the HVAC company, we bought more. If we're just counting doors, we bought more doors that year than we have in a year since. I think that was like 170 or something, but they were, mobile home parks. So, because it's a lot easier to buy, let's round up and say 200 doors in a year when you're buying mobile home parks instead of one-off houses.
Sure.
And then 2019, we realized we bought so many doors and went full time that we realized, oh my gosh, we're managers now. We're not even investors. We have just so much stuff that we have to manage, otherwise it's going to do poorly. So we didn't buy nearly as much 2019. 2020, our single family business was kind of in formation. At the end of 2020 is when I really think we started to kind of go for single family.
Mm-hmm.
And 2021 is when we really started making the push, got to the 10 houses per month at the end of 2021.
Wow.
If we're looking at our entire portfolio, it's just over 40 million. We
Beautiful.
own just under 300 houses here in the Tulsa area. We sold some of the mobile home parks, but we still have 2. We've got a few industrial buildings, a few apartments, smaller apartments around town, and our RV park development.
Is the RV park a good business? I mean, everybody, they're not making any more of them. They don't zone mobile home park frequently anymore, if at all. People like them. They've been bid up in a crazy way, but it seems like it's a reasonable business model. You buy the pads, you either you rent out the pads, and you either rent the homes that go on top of them or sell the homes on top of them, so you don't have the ongoing maintenance expenses. Has that been a good business for you?
Yeah. Sam built it out from scratch. And I mean, RV parks are great when you are the closest next to the highway to some metro.
Mm-hmm.
But the second someone builds one closer to the destination, and usually that's the metro or it's some big plant, you're usually done. So
interesting.
Yes, the RV park has done really, 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 really well. But the second someone decides to build one a little bit closer to Tulsa on that same road, it won't.
How are they going to build a new one, though, if you can't zone RV anymore? I guess it's something that's already zoned and they just buy the land that's zoned properly.
There's only a few locations that actually could be built still, and we've got our eye really closely on them.
What's the zoning that's required for mobile home park? Is it just some high density commercial, or is it something specific? Is it like a specific mobile home designation?
It's not specific. I think mobile home park might be different than RV. I think it's IM.
Industrial.
IM works, yeah. I think commercial might work as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think both technically can work.
I mean, I think realistically, I've been on the planning commission here in Tulsa for 2 years. I don't know if we've ever seen a mobile, like a zoning request change to anything related to mobile, or even anything related to mobile. Maybe I'm wrong. We've done some like tiny home type concepts, or seen some tiny home concepts, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Anyways, so right now you're into buying directly, partnerships for hard money lending, for deals that look interesting, for construction. Kind of what else are you working on besides those things?
Sure. I really didn't say unit count either. I think we're just over 550.
Wow. Okay.
If I'm correct.
Nice.
So in terms of, and I unit count's an interesting one, because it's like, how do you count an industrial building downtown? That's 12,000.
Is it one?
Feet.
Yeah.
I just counted it as one.
It doesn't take everything into consideration. Talking about unit count or doors under management or whatever.
Yeah. And I would certainly prefer less that made more. And
for sure.
Everybody should.
I mean, industrial, some of the commercial stuff, triple net, it's like you may make a bundle and have almost zero phone calls. And when the phone calls come in, they come in at Monday morning at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. instead of, Christmas Eve with no heat or something.
Yeah. Because people just take care of the issues themselves when there are.
Totally.
All the industrial deals that we've done have been triple net, and it's worked really well. We're still kind of a little new, I would say, so we're being really picky about what we take on. But essentially, I mean, industrial is pretty simple. We build in roughly 15% for CAM, and I know that's too much. We'll run 25% for vacancy if it's not there. And then we want to be able to buy the asset and front load 2 years of holding costs.
Wow.
And if the numbers still work, then that's a deal we'll take on. And that's our entire criteria for industrial.
That runs pretty conservatively, I guess. The 25% vacancies, because it just takes a long time to put somebody in. It could potentially take a long time.
Yeah, and I realized some people, when I've said that before, said, well, you're doubling up because you have 2 years of holdings, and you're also running 25% off that. I'm like, yeah, but
you're just being extra conservative, and if the numbers work there, then they can work with less vacancy as well.
Anytime we get into something new, it has to be a home run. Otherwise, I'm just not super interested. But so the things that we're currently saying yes to is, so 2023 is kind of a year of delegation. So I brought in Justin Oldham, and he is my manager for Spark Homes. He's doing an awesome job. We probably won't buy 100 this year, but probably 60, 70 with him. But the difference is last year, I was doing almost pretty much everything. And it was a full-time job. Like that was really all I had time for.
Yeah.
This year, now Spark Homes takes me 2, 3, 4 hours a week, maybe.
Wow.
Some weeks even less. And we're still going to buy 60 or 70 houses. And so to me, that is a huge win. And so in our free time, we've started Spark Construction, which is now essentially a way, because like our whole thing with Spark is I want people to join our team. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to sacrifice. You're probably going to be taking a pay cut to join us even. And I want it to be difficult like that. I don't want people who are just like, oh, this is convenient. I want people that are like, I'm going to stop at nothing. I want to join your team because I think that my ceiling with you is way higher than if I did anything else.
Right.
And I want that to be true so much within our company. So Devin, he joined our team. He gave us 2.5 years. And I realized that we had a ceiling with him in his current role. And so that's when we said, all right, well, let's start renovating other people's projects. And gave him a deal he was able to retire his wife in the first 2 months.
Wow.
And that's way more important to me than anything else.
How does the Spark Construction side work? You guys just take a general contracting oversight fee, or do you just lump it all in? And if you can do it for less, you make more? How does it work?
It depends. We've kind of done both. But essentially is, whenever you're doing 2 or 3 houses at a time, you need a really big internal crew because you don't have enough volume to keep an external crew busy. But as our single family has grown, we're actually able to shrink our internal crew. And now we have a bunch of really tiny, small crews that, technically are, don't work for us. They have their own crew, but they also don't take on anybody else's jobs.
Yep.
Like we're able to keep these, I'm thinking of 2 specific painting crews. They're only 2 or 3 guys each, but we keep them busy full time. Like I don't think they work for anybody else.
Yep.
And so because of that, we have incredible pricing, and we can just, with renovation, like volume is the key. If you want to renovate cheaper, you need more volume because that's your only negotiation lever. And so because of that, we've been able to go out and, renovate other investors' projects mainly. And do it cheaper than they would be able to. And our whole thing is, we're not custom. We're not going to do anything like spec. It's going to be, here's a picture of a house we just renovated. If you want this, we'll do it. And that's it. If you want different grout color, we're not your people.
What do you do? What do you do color-wise on walls? I mean, do you have 1 or 2? Do you do lamb's wool and agreeable gray, or is it just like agreeable gray? You want it, take it or leave it?
We have a gray or a brown. I don't know what the names of them are.
Yeah, but like 2, so you can have 2 options basically.
Yeah, you have 2 options. You're gonna have subway.
Looks like this or looks like this.
I mean, it's just like we make all of our houses the same: clean, safe, functional. There was a really long time that we didn't even put granite in our houses, but now we can get granite for barely more than the cost of Formica, and so we started doing that in all the houses as well. But we are clean, safe, functional investors. We don't make anything premium at all.
But I mean, that stuff sells, standard sells. People look at white subway tile and go, I like that. It's a good look. And if you're building a spec home for yourself, you might say, well, I need the fanciest stone to go up the side. But if you're a tenant in the house, you're looking for a new rental, you just want what was trendy in the 90s or 2000s, and you're happy with that. Clean, safe, functional is a beautiful way to be, and it rents all day, I bet.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's our model with construction. I was also just going to add, we started Spark Lending this year as well, which we're lending hard money to investors in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Our general terms are 12%, 1 to 3 points, depending on the size of the project and the investor's experience. And our whole model is I'm going to lend what I would buy that house for. Mm-hmm. So if I was direct to seller, how much would I have paid? And
so that doesn't take into account construction costs for the renovation. Somebody's got to fund that themselves.
It does. So usually I'll lend 90 to 100% of the purchase price, and then up to 75% of the after repair value.
Great.
Yeah. And the more experience, like if you flip 30, 40 houses, I'll give you 100%. Like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But, I also, I request bank records. I request like some sort of track record. My goal is to be the cheapest in terms of points and interest rate. But I do require a little bit more documentation.
So let's go. I was gonna transition a little bit, but let's stay on Spark Construction for a second. How did you guys, through this run up of the recent bout of inflation, how did you control supply costs and make sure that your renovations came in at or under budget when materials were just fluctuating? I mean, OSB went up to $72 a sheet, down to $25, and it's back down to kind of normal levels now. But how do you control that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, when I say Spark Construction, it really should have been called Spark Remodel. Like, we're just doing cosmetic remodels of primary residence. So
you're not lifting, you're not doing concrete or metal. What do you call them? Why am I blanking on the word? Like lifting a house and putting, mud jacking and then putting in the posts, and you're not doing any of that kind of stuff. Serious foundational work.
We certainly could, and we have in the past. But it's such a small, like, even the homes that we personally buy, we're not going to buy a house that's got major structural. So a lot of the price fluctuations, I would say, didn't really affect us. But for the ones that did, we've got a weekly construction meeting with our team where we're looking at all of our projects, we're recapping where we're at, we're looking at material costs, and I guess like every single week we're looking at our spreadsheet for how we're going to calculate the cost of renovation. We're making modifications to the cost of materials every single week. We also, we can turn, our average renovation is 3 to 5 weeks, start to finish. Beautiful. So we're turning them so quick that it doesn't, as long as your spreadsheet's updated whenever you close it, you're good to go.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second about delegation. I mean, you've taken a full-time job in the home purchasing, the acquisition side of your business, and narrowed it down or whittled it down to a couple of hours a week. That requires relying on really talented people in your organization. You've talked about, who you hire to some degree, on people that are hungry and have the ability to out earn their former role if they're just working super hard, and the business continues to grow, and you're providing that growth, I guess, for them to be able to continue to earn. But you mentioned Justin, Devin, Sam. Who are these people? What are they doing with you in the organization? And how have you been able to let go of some of the things that you formerly did? One thing we find with entrepreneurs often is that they want it done 100% or 110%, and there's nobody in any organization that's going to do it like the owners. And it's really challenging to let things go and delegate and trust the people that are in your organization to do them. Now, the old adage goes, if they can do it 70% as well as you do, it's worth delegating, that task, so you have your time back. But how have you found those people, and how have you, worked on that delegation to get some of the plates that you're holding and spinning as the entrepreneur off your desk?
Sure. So how we find them? Initially, so our first 15 employees kind of came and went. They were all hired off Indeed or some other platform similar to Indeed. And I began to think, this is probably at the beginning of 2020, began to think, like, maybe the problem is with me. Like maybe Sam and I, so for everyone listening, Sam Singraf and I are 50-50 partners in everything we've done. Maybe the problem's with us. Like for some reason, we are not able to delegate and manage properly. No one seems to care. No one seems to give a crap. And then we hired Devin, and Devin and Emily were brought around the same time in 2020, late 2020. And they were the first two that were like, whoa, it is possible for someone who's not an owner to care as much as us. But the reason that I think they cared so much is because of what we built them up to. We said from the beginning, you are not going to be an employee. My goal is for you to be sitting on the beach with me, and beach meaning whatever you want out of life, like it's an actual beach. Yeah. So we kind of made a pivot with them and tried something new where it's going to be difficult. You're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to give this everything. This is going to be your only thing. You're not going to be doing something out on the side. Like this is everything. And if you're willing to make that commitment to me, I will give you a structure where every single house that we buy also benefits you. So what's best for me is also best for you. And so, I mean, the long story short is we started profit sharing. And since we've started doing that, we got people working on Saturdays. We got people working on Sunday. Like I can call anybody on the team at 11 o'clock at night. They're answering the phone. We have this like relentless, energy here at the office because what's best for me is also best for everyone. It's not just a paycheck. And so kind of how we've structured that is, I will underpay people, and I'm being very transparent about that. Like if you come join us, you are taking a pay cut. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to give us 2 years. You're going to become better at whatever I give you than I am. And when you are, I will find a way to fund it, to back it, to create some spinoff and give you an opportunity to become the person you can be that has no earning cap. And so Spark Construction was really our, first actualization of that. And so we used to find people from Indeed, and we still do. I do like Indeed's platform because you can approve applicants before you actually have to pay for them, which is awesome. I like that about the platform. But if I'm thinking about everyone on the team, everyone at some point reached out for a coffee meeting. They sent a really good message. And I was volunteering my time away a lot more than I am now, going to coffee meetings and trying to help as much people as I could. And a lot of times I go to a coffee meeting and they're saying something and asking questions. It's not coffee. It's an interview. It's always an interview.
Yeah.
It's always an interview. And if I think they've got it, halfway through, I'll say, all right, this isn't coffee more. This is an interview. And that's how we've found everyone. It's people who
on the sharing of profit side, do you operate that as a share of gross profit, net profit? How do you, if the business makes a strategic donation to anything political, the real estate commission, whatever it would be, like the National Association of Realtors, that then if you're running off net profit, that would take away some of their chunk of change, I guess. Do people ever push back? How do you kind of deal with that situation?
It is based off of, I don't want to say exactly, but it is based off of net. But it's also standardized. So it doesn't, it is net when there is net to distribute, but it doesn't fluctuate with what net is, if that makes sense. So it's almost like, all right, if we hit this threshold, here's what we're paying out.
Sure.
Almost like, imagine like a preferred return on an apartment building, 7% pref.
Yep.
Anything you hit above 7 is great, but you're going to hit 7.
Yep. Beautiful. And you found that just motivates people, and they see the way that drops to their bottom line personally.
Yeah.
And they're willing to answer the phone, work weekends, do whatever. They just hustle hard because they know that they stand to benefit from that at some point. So one challenge that we have is that, if you pay that out annually, it seems like in January, people don't necessarily see how that's going to impact them. If you pay it out quarterly, you have your own challenges. I mean, salespeople want to be paid commission on the work that they do today. And, that's a motivating factor for getting the deal done. How have you overcome some of that in terms of how you pay them, when you pay them?
And that's just, I think, goes back to the interviewing process. I tell them, like, this is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
When you sign this, profit sharing, you're signing a 10-year agreement. Like, if you leave before 10 years, you don't get anything.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure we're finding the people that are okay.
That's awesome.
And okay with the long term. And I think that's why the coffee meetings have worked so great to find people, is because I'm not having to convince someone that long-term passive income is better than the check now. They already believe it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not taking someone off Indeed.
I mean, that's also a real
estate's good.
That's also a real estate philosophy, right? You're putting $100 today to make $1 every month for in perpetuity, but you got to be willing to cut back, pull back, pull in the horn, so to speak, today, so that you can have a better future. That's guns versus butter in traditional economics, 101 terms.
Yeah. Just taking people who already believe that. You don't have to convince them of anything. It's the same reason that when you go look for your very first investor to give you hard money on a single family flip, the best person to find that is another real estate investor. You don't have to teach or convince them that real estate is a great investment. You don't have to convince them that a first position mortgage is very secure. They already know it. Yeah.
So Justin on your team is working on collections, tenant placement, renovations, or not renovations, but making sure that the process flows through Spark construction. Is that right?
Yeah. So my only involvement with Spark Homes is now I'll do either right before we contract or right when we contracted the day of, I'm going to do a deal review with Justin. I'm going to look at his spreadsheet he's put together. I'm going to confirm the comps. I'm doing my own full independent analysis with the data he's given me. Once we close it, we'll have like kind of a plan going forward of like, here's the standard that we're going to renovate it to. Because, is this going to be a lease option? Is this going to be a rental? Is this going to be a contract for deed? Is this going to be a flip? Like, we don't do any Airbnb, but every single other model, we have to be able to make work. So we have kind of different renovation standards for each one. They're all clean, safe, functional, but we still have different renovation standards for each one. And then when the house is done, Justin will go walk it. I'll look at his report and we'll confirm our initial plan of, okay, we're going to do a lease option here. Here's going to be our price. Here's going to be our option fee. And we're going forward. Or, hey, this was going to be a rental. Here's our rental amount. Let's recomp it and make sure that's still accurate. And then let's pass it over to our management division.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's taken a ton of work off me. He's doing an amazing job. And he's going to be sitting on that beach with me because of it.
I love it. You're a tech guy at heart. What processes or systems are you improving in the business these days?
So it's funny, when I first got started, there's a desire I'm going to build like some huge complex system in Podio. And I'm just using Podio as an example, but that just automates and sends everything. Sure. And the more I've learned about SOP, and the more I've created procedures, you want a Google Doc with step 1, few words, a link to a video for someone to watch. Step 2, few words, link to a video to watch. We use Loom. The simpler, the better. Yeah. And if you really want to delegate, you have to make it so simple that someone can watch this video, and after the video, there is no questions.
Yeah.
And if they have questions, they might just be the wrong person because they're just doing the class.
I always struggle though with like what the right level of detail in those SOPs are. You can put every detail, click here, type this, click there, type there, or you can just show them in a video. But people need different levels of instruction, details of instructions, I guess. And I always struggle with, did we provide too much? Did we provide too little? Do you provide a link to, I think you guys use Building, we use Appfolio as software. Like, do you provide a link to the troubleshooting for this process or whatever in their, in Appfolio or Buildium's help menu, what they've already put together? It's, I struggle with what level of detail to put into SOPs, because you can just say the eviction process is send 5-day pay or quit notice, post it to their door, whatever, send it certified, post it to their door, then start eviction process. Or you can be like, well, the first step of the eviction process is you go down to the county courthouse, you fill the documents out. Do you list what what every line item on there and what they should fill out, who the landlord is, or do you not? And then the next step is send it to the process server. It's like, you just struggle, or I struggle with, how much detail to provide in those things? How do you deal with that?
In our interview process, it's a 30-minute interview, and then I send people on a wild goose chase. And
Like
I
a
do call it a wild
scavenger
goose
hunt?
chase. No, seriously. And it's difficult.
So
I've
you're
had
testing
people,
entrepreneurship. How much instruction do you need from me to get this job done?
yes,
And how much are you willing to just push and figure it out and Google things and talk to people and ask questions so that you can get this job done?
I give people incredibly vague directions. I say, don't ask questions, and you have a week. Some people stay up all night. Some
Wow.
people you can tell didn't really try.
Yeah.
And that is the interview. All the questions, people, if there's anything I've learned is that in an interview, I don't learn anything. I learned that someone can talk and BS well. That's
Yeah.
all I learned.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm testing really is that someone's a self-starter.
Right.
And the people that demonstrate that they're willing to, for one, do whatever it takes, they're going to stay up late because they're all still usually have full-time jobs whenever they're doing this. And it's not easy. Like, I'll give them something that might take 30, 40 hours on top of their job. Like, they're canceling all their weekend plans.
Yeah.
And if they're not, of course, they're not a good fit. And again, because of that, in the SOPs, I still make everything as detailed as I possibly can because, like with Loom, you can just speed up the video if I'm being repetitive or redundant. But I like to think that most people don't even need that they can figure it out on their own.
Isn't that what entrepreneurship is, though? It's like the buck stops with me. I'm going to figure this out come hell or high water. And I Google things. I look at the right way to, I talk to an attorney. I talk to my friends. Like, if you're going to figure something out, you just leverage your whole network, all the resources, including everything on the interwebs, and then do it, right. And at some point, you got to take a leap and go, the right thing to put in this, in my example of evictions, the right thing to put in this line item is, or this specific line is, well, I better ask the person, the clerk at the courthouse. I better ask Google, my friends, whatever else, and I'm going to write something. I've got to take a leap at some point, and I got to just do it.
Yeah. And you can't be scared of being like,
right.
Oh, I feel stupid for asking this. Because what I realize is, people, they probably assume this about us both, is like, oh, Matt's got all the answers. He knows everything. And so then the next time when you go down to the county office, you're like, oh, everyone thinks I know everything. But it's like, I need to ask a pretty basic question. I kind of feel stupid asking it. But it's like, no, that's how you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you tell people that are looking to buy their first deal, that are just novices that want to get in, that want to be where you are at 500 plus doors or units? Like, how do you get them started? How do you kick them off?
And the reality is you have to start with one. The only reason that we're able to buy so many houses now is, when you're trying to get started, you need to buy home runs where every single deal you buy it cash, refinance, pulling all your money back out and more, and going and buying the next one. Every single deal has to be like that. You don't have any cash. But as you become a high income earner, now, like where our hard money lending business come from, I personally have money that I need to invest. I'm not going to put it in the S&P 500. I'm just not going to do it. So it's like, I would rather give it to investors that I know how to flip houses and get a good return off that. And the same thing goes with, buying houses at scale. There's deals that I'll take on now where we're not 100% refinance to get all of our money back, but all the mechanical is new. It's in a good school district. If the lease option or if the flip goes through, like we're going to make, $30,000, $40,000. It's like, I'm willing to put my money in that now, which helps us buy more houses.
Right.
Sorry, what was the question?
That for somebody that's just brand new that wants to buy their first
just getting
house.
started.
Yeah.
So I was saying all that to mention the snowball. Like, you don't get there overnight. You don't go from nothing to be able to buy 10 a month overnight. So if you want to buy one, the reality is you need to surround yourself with everyone that you possibly can that is experienced, does this full time. It's not a side gig, and they don't have gray. What I mean by that is the best mentor is 5 years ahead of you, not 20, not 30. And you need someone who's still very active in the space, who knows what your next step needs to be. But you surround yourself with people like that. You go to all the meetups, and then whenever you gain people's respect, the only way you gain respect is you're professional. You ask really targeted questions. If you ever take somebody out to lunch, you're going to pay. You're going to show up with a notepad. You're going to drill them with questions. Like, my rule was, this person isn't going to finish their meal because I'm asking so many questions. Like, I am showing up prepared. And while they may not enjoy that lunch necessarily, they get to finish their meal, they will respect me and answer the call whenever I call next. So whenever I contract this house, Now I have a network that I can reach out to and say, hey, can you come walk this with me? Because I've never been an expert at renovations. Like, I've always relied on my partner, Sam, to help with that.
Sure.
So that would really be step one. Step two, of course, is just to educate yourself. And at some point, once you feel like your network is good enough, you just have to jump in. You're not going to know everything. You're going to be kind of feel like you're making up as you go. That's fine. That's what everybody does. I would pick 2 or 3 neighborhoods, no more than 500 houses, pull a high equity list, and you're going to go drive for dollars, narrow that list down a little bit more. You're going to put everyone on a mail campaign. You're going to mail them every 3 weeks, and then you're going to call and text, individual text, not blast text, that's illegal. Individual text off your phone and call until you can mark off every single name on that entire list. And that's what I would do to start. You're going to buy, unless you pick some, neighborhood out in Bixby, like, again, the further in Tulsa, the further north you go, the more likely you're going to be able to buy some houses off that list. But yeah, you might get 2 or 3 houses off that list. It might take you a year to get through the entire 500 to really mark everybody off. But the reality is most people pull a list of 5,000 to start. They send 1 round of mail. They can't afford to send it again. That doesn't work.
You got to
start small,
persistent.
Start targeted, start in one neighborhood, and then hit every single one that's high equity until that entire list is done. I mean, that's what we've done. Like, one of our biggest ways we still buy houses is mail. But it's not initial mail. Like, I really never mail someone now that's brand new. I want to make sure I make contact with them via text or text or a call. Sometimes I will put someone on mail campaign that I just can't get a hold of that is a high equity list. But the reality is we mail these people every single month, and we have for years, and we're not going to stop.
Somebody wants to get involved with you, take you to lunch, ask you a bunch of questions, or they want to be part of your mastermind group, which we didn't even touch on here, but is a Spark mastermind group. How do they reach you? How do they contact you?
Really the best way is just Facebook Messenger. I will admit that I'm like 150 messages behind right now, and there's messages from 2 months ago that I have not answered yet, and I've got to get better at that. But the reality is that the time I spend on social media, even when I'm posting often, it's not much, and I don't use it. I don't scroll. I don't ever really use it for that. Like, it's I'm going to post something, I'm getting off. But the busier I am outside or the other projects we're working on, the less I'm going to be involved on social media and responding to messages. But that still is the best way. I mean, right now we have a storage facility development that breaks ground probably in the next 2-3 weeks out in Bixby.
Beautiful.
And that has been taking up a ton of my time. I'll say we have a very large apartment complex that was supposed to close last Friday. That's been taking up a ton of my time, but it got, the closing got pushed. So with these 2 kind of big things I'm working on now, it's like, you send me a Facebook message, but it might take me a month to respond.
Busy people are busy people, but they're the ones that you want to talk to, I think, is the truth.
Yeah.
Will Karstetter is part owner of Spark Equity Group, multidivisional private investment firm. They are focusing on acquiring value-add real estate. They now have $40 million in assets under management, and they do construction. They have Spark Construction, Spark Homes serving Tulsa, and then Spark Lending serving Tulsa and Oklahoma City. They're formed to not only be a rapidly growing investment firm, but to create a platform of highly motivated individuals to feel empowered and reach their goals, which is what we talked about in terms of hiring the right people that are motivated for a 10-year payoff and be totally invested in the business. They found that by creating an inspiring and motivating environment, the growth naturally follows, which again is what we heard. They're more than a company, they're a community. Will, I appreciate you being on. Any final words to any of our listeners?
5 years ago, I was an HVAC salesman. I wasn't depressed. I think you speak that over yourself to a large extent, but I certainly wasn't happy. I felt like if I didn't do something, that the next 10, 15, 20 years were going to disappear, and I was still going to be sitting in that cubicle. The reality is that nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to do it for you. There is going to be some risk. You are going to be scared. There are going to be sleepless nights, but I promise it's worth it. I promise it's worth it. Now, I don't encourage people to do what I do or I did. I took on more debt than I could ever pay back, and I just kind of went for it. Form strategic partnerships with people already in it.
Yep. Have
And
guidance, have a mentor.
I promise it's worth it.
Yeah. I love it. Will, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.